So I was raised as a Christian Catholic. Then when I had some questions when I was studying to become a priest, then there were no answers, so I started to search east. Started to study Buddhism. Then when I went to India, I was 19 and a half. And then just when I landed in India, I landed in Bombay, and I saw Prabhupada from far, like sitting very far. So I couldn't say it gave me an impression, because I just saw someone sitting very far. And I remember the devotees, they had a question and answer booth. And later on, I knew it was Giriraj Maharaj preaching to me, but at that time I was not into it like that. Then I spent a few months in India, in a Buddhist monastery, Kriya Yoga Ashram of Yogananda, his first disciple in Jagannath Puri. This is my biggest shame, to be in Puri, but not to know anything about Mahaprabhu or Krishna. Then when I came back to France, actually I came back to England, and every day I used to see the devotees in Oxford Street in London chanting, whether it was day or night, or rainy or sunny, they were always there. And I was saying, wow. I had some anger about karma. I was worried about karma. I was thinking, okay, those people, maybe they have the answer, because they're chanting mantras all day, so they're not making any new karma. But what about the past karma? That was my big question. And then I was thinking, I should go at the temple. Then somehow I didn't go, went back to France. I was praying to Krishna, to God, because I had been raised as a Christian, then became a Buddhist, then impersonal yogi, so I was kind of mixed up. So I remember praying, my God, I don't even know anymore if you exist or not, but please, give me a sign. And then I took the train back to France. And then when I landed in France, I went down from the train. Right there on the platform, there was a devotee, a girl distributing magazines back to Godhead. And then there was some guy bothering her, so I chased the guy away. And I asked her, what are you doing? She said, well, we're distributing those books about Krishna. And Krishna, I came back from India, that it sounded familiar. So I just picked up a magazine, changed station, went to see my mother, who was a very devout Catholic. And in the train, when I read the magazine, there was this picture of Prabhupada. The first time I saw him like that, in a picture, and I was very impressed. He looked so humble. Prabhupada with a hat and with some garland. And I thought, this person is very, very humble, but he looks very powerful. And when I read the magazine during the train, I thought, this is what I've been looking for. This is better than Buddhism or Mayavad or yoga or anything. Last time I saw my mother, I was preaching Buddhism to her. This time I started to preach Krishna to her, and she's very Catholic from top to bottom. So after a few days, it didn't work very nice between us. So I said, look, Mom, I'm just going back to India. She said, no, you just came back from India. I said, yeah, but I want to find a real teacher. Because I was thinking I would not join in France, I would join in India, become a devotee there. And when I went to Paris, when I went to the Indian embassy, I was in the tube, and there was Indradjuna, who became Indradjuna Maharaj. And he was distributing books. And my mind told me, don't go next to that fellow, your independence is finished. And another voice told me, but anyway, in 2-3 days, you will be like him. So I waited and waited, because I'm from the country, I don't know Paris, I don't know the map of the tube, But he was sitting next to the map, he was standing there and then distributing magazine. I thought, wow, he's not going to get away from here. So let me try to go and incognito to see the map. But I was like the typical target. I was wearing a lungi, a purple kurta, and Rudraksha beads, Lord Shiva's beads, and shaven head and beard, like the ideal target. And he didn't try to sell me a magazine. He just gave me an invitation. He said, do you speak English? I said, yes. I said, oh, we have an Indian temple. He spotted, okay, this guy's coming from India, so let me catch him through that line. And then I said, very good. And he said, oh, we have a Sunday program, why don't you come? I said, yeah, sure. Picked up, put the card in my pocket, then did my thing. And when I came back to my grandmother's house in the evening, and I checked the map at the back of the invitation card, I saw this is just 2 blocks away. So next morning, not in the afternoon, I didn't come to the Sunday afternoon, I came in the Sunday morning at 7 o'clock, I knocked at the door, and the girl who sold me the magazine a week before, she opened the door. And I told her, oh, I came, I guess, to chant and pray with you. And I came in, bowed down. It was arti going on, and you bow down in the temple, like in India. And immediately, after that, some devotees spotted me, and then after, it was breakfast prasadam, and started to preach to me. Guru Guranga, who became my temple president in Switzerland for 4 years. And then Prabhupada came, I think that was in May. Prabhupada came in August, and he installed Radha Krishna deities. And then coming from that yogic background, I remember the first time I saw Prabhupada sitting on the Vyasasana, I said, he looks like a mountain of power. Now I was thinking in those terms. But when Prabhupada started to speak, I saw there was so much compassion coming from him. I said, no, it's not a mountain of power only, it's a mountain of love and compassion. That really struck me. And until now, I had a hard time not to worship the deity of Lord Jagannath, which was the local deities in Paris at that time. Because for me, it looked like some Amerindian totem, and I remember praying, oh my Lord, no, I could never believe you looked like that. But if Prabhupada said so, then you must look like that. But really. And when he installed the deities and gave a lecture, Prabhupada said, the deities of Jagannath is not very beautiful. And I said, oh, okay, it was not an offense. Yes, in Paris, every morning, Prabhupada would go on a morning walk. And then I remember one time, we saw some people walking their dogs. And Prabhupada became very grave. And then, I cannot swear, but it looked like there were some tears like brimming in his eyes. And he looked and he said, most of those people, next lives, they will change. They'll be on the other side of the leash. And he looked like so much, speaking with so much compassion, like he said, like, so unfortunate. They have this human birth and they're walking the dog, but because of attachment, next life, most of them will be on the other side of the leash. They'll be in a dog form. And I was saying, oh my God. But Prabhupada, when he spoke that, was not like contemptuous or all those karmis. It was like so full of compassion. And it really, you could really feel that, and I felt very impressed. Then we went to a lake, au Jardin Bois de Boulogne, Bois de Vincennes, which was next to the temple. And a devotee was bringing back some old prasad, like leftover prasad, to give to the ducks in the lake. And Prabhupada pointed to one little duck with his cane. He said, you see that one who's quacking the most? No, he's getting the attention. This is what you should do with Krishna, the spiritual master. The devotee who's quacking the most, asking, Gurudev, Gurudev, no, he gets. Just like this duck, automatically the devotee's attention is going to him. I remember that, like little snippets of teaching like that. Because Prabhupada was not speaking so much during the morning walk. He was walking, and it was actually hard for us to keep space, keep up with him, because he was walking at such a strong pace. I went back to Switzerland because I was staying there at the time. I only stayed a few months in France, and I moved to Switzerland where I was there for 4 years. So Prabhupada came to Switzerland. And I remember Prabhupada speaking in one lecture, which would really impress me. He said, the devotee, he wants to install Krishna in his heart on a big diamond throne, a pure heart. So we should do like that. We should clean our heart so much by chanting Hare Krishna, so that Krishna comes in our heart, but our heart should be clean. And then how do you clean your heart? By making it like very spotless, by giving up all your anarthas, all the unwanted things, and praying and engaging all the time in his service. And I remember I asked Nitai, he was a Prabhupada servant at the time, Nitai Prabhu, and then I asked him, did Prabhupada ever say where he's going to be preaching in the next life? And Nitai told me, well, I never heard that question. I could go and ask him right now. So he went right into Prabhupada's room and came out. Prabhupada said, I'm going to preach in the lower planets in the next life. And I was like, completely fazed. So much compassion. This is what struck me most with Prabhupada was his compassion. It's like bottomless. He was like willing to do anything to please Mahaprabhu and to please his spiritual master. But when he said, I'm going to preach to the lower planets, I was thinking, how can someone do that? That was really, really, striking. And after a few months, Prabhupada came back to France, maybe that was the next year, and then I got a phone call, oh, you should come and take Diksha, take second initiation. No. And I was thinking, but I'm not ready. He said, no, you should take the mercy when it comes. So I boarded a train, went to Paris, and then Prabhupada was there. This was actually the only time I was alone with Prabhupada in the room when he gave me Diksha, when he gave me second initiation. And I remember he took his thumb and made me like that, do counting on the, with his hand, with his own hand, showed me like that. Then he gave me the Gayatri mantras. And then I knew that I had to say something, you have to say something to glorify the spiritual master. But I felt like so foolish and a new devotee, like dumb and not knowing anything. So I said, but I have to say something. So I just, out of my foolish head, I thought, oh, glories to your lotus feet, Srila Prabhupada. And he looked at me and said, Jaw. And that went like straight to my, so I'm just offering like a child, offering like an ugly, tie to his father, and the father accepting because it's offered by the child with affection. So Prabhupada just accepted this like, ugly tie of my dumb words. Oh, glories to your lotus feet. He said, joy. And I just bowed down, mumbled my mantras and retreated out like, what was that? Another remembrance I have is during the morning walk in New Mayapur, which is nearby. Prabhupada sat in front of what became like the bakery at one old building. And there were two French guys coming from Afghanistan. And they were claimed to be Afghanis, but of course we knew they were French, but they were pretending to be Afghanis, and they were like with turban and everything. And they were asking Prabhupada question because they wanted to be able to follow their own mind. And then they were asking Prabhupada, but can you follow Hinduism and at the same time follow Islam? And they were asking again and again question, and Prabhupada finally became very sober and he said, no, you choose one path, but actually you don't want to follow anything. And they were completely like, it took the wind out of their sails so much. And then Prabhupada at that time he said, no, to think of Krishna like Mother Yashoda is thinking, is it any difficulty? Then I asked a question at that time. How can we think about Krishna like Mother Yashoda, like you said, or like the Pandavas, he also said. He said, first you have to stop doing nonsense. The other time I saw Prabhupada was in Bombay. I used to have some money, because I come from a wealthy family, so I could travel to India regularly. So I arrived in Bombay and I was thinking, oh, let me bring to Prabhupada some nuts that he doesn't find in India. So I brought some hazelnuts. And I went to the kitchen, I asked, the pujari can give me a plate for Prabhupada. And I put those nuts on the plate and I went up the stairs. Prabhupada was on the roof giving darshan, and I just came and I put the plate next to Prabhupada. I bowed down and put the plate next to Prabhupada. And Prabhupada started to take the hazelnuts in his hand, and without touching, Prabhupada would be such an amazing gentleman. He would just pop them into his mouth and looking. And that one Indian, I remember, asked a question, what about the disciples of this one and this one? Prabhupada did not criticize, he said, just ask their disciple. No, not about the disciple. What about this Swami? What about that Swami? Prabhupada said, just ask the disciple. They don't know anything. But ask my disciples, any even new devotee, he can tell you the whole philosophy. Prabhupada was very elegantly and majestically speaking, look, my disciple, my devotees. Prabhupada was expressing so many times so much appreciation for his disciples. After so many years, some people may have some axe to grind with the GBC or the guru business and everything. But Prabhupada was giving so much credit to his disciples. He was not tolerating, I have to associate with those guys or something. He loved his disciples so much, and he gave them so much credit and so much affection. I was just reading recently the diary of Suddhadvaiti Prabhu, and this comes out, he's such a gifted devotee to present. You read that book, it's just Prabhupada is right there, so much. Prabhupada has so much affection. I think he conquered us Not so much with philosophy, but with his affection, his compassion, his love. Time I remember Prabhupada was in Mayapur during the Gopunim festival. If you remember, we used to do parikram going around the altar with Prabhupada, and there was a bell on the left side like that. And Prabhupada would catch the bell and ring it 3 times. You can't go around like that. And I remember one time Prabhupada took the bell and started to ring 1, 2, 3 and looked behind like that. And then when he looked behind, Prabhupada was beaming with a big smile, and everyone started to jump, in ecstasy. I see all those, and I was impressed. I said, you see all those big guys, big GBC, like grown-up men, just jumping like little kids with that smile of Prabhupada. With that smile, he conquered everyone. Another anecdote is, I think in '75, that was the first time I came back to India as a devotee. And in Mayapur festival, that anecdote is known, but I remember because I was there. Prabhupada came, sat on the Vyasasan, started to chant Jaya Radha Madhava, and suddenly he stopped. And I was next to a big loudspeaker, and then I looked up, and then Prabhupada's forehead was knocking on the microphone like 1 time. Now I looked up and said, what's happening? And then I said, boom, I heard this like horrible sound in the loudspeaker, like, boom. And it was Prabhupada on his forehead. And he tried to control himself, and again, he could not control himself in his ecstasy. So again, his head was knocking, I think 2 or 3 times, and I was horrified. This is a horrible sound. I mean, imagine your guru's head is like knocking on it's like he left or something, and I was like, and then the devotees quickly, if I remember, came to Prabhupada and then lifted him and took him away. One sannyasi started kirtan just at the same time, and you know the rest of the story. It became a controversy. Was it offense for the sannyasi to do kirtan or that? Because we hear that when Mahaprabhu went into trance, and his disciples, his followers would do kirtan to bring him back. And I heard, and I read, and I was not there in the room, when Prabhupada, when he was asked, he said, I don't do that very often in such a humble way. We had such a out of this world spiritual master. So much humility, so much compassion, so much love, so much authority. Those things, there was no doubt. Afterwards, unfortunately, when the guru business, quote unquote, started, then people and some gurus fell down. Then came the question, is he bona fide or not? But with Prabhupada, that question that never crossed your mind even. I had a spiritual master before in India, like I said, the first disciple of Yogananda, the famous Paramahamsa, autobiography of a yogi. So I was in his ashram, and he was a very powerful yogi. He would go into trance, and we used to massage his body, and we'd say, oh, he's gone. And after a few hours, he'd come back. Okay, now he's back there. So I had that impression, but Prabhupada was like way beyond any kind of yogic, power like that. He was so impressive. From the first time, from the first time I saw his picture in the magazine, I was impressed. He has so much humility. He looks so powerful, but so humble at the same time. The first color magazine, Color Back to Godhead in French. I think the quality which attracted me most to Prabhupada, like I think I mentioned, was his compassion. It was like emanating from every pore of his being. So much compassion. He was not tirelessly repeating, again with so much patience, the same basic stuff to try to make us understand who we were, what was our predicament and what we were supposed to do to get out of it. But I think what was most striking for me was his compassion. And also, he was speaking with so much authority. I mean, he was not making up something from you. When he was speaking, it was like, there was no like, well, no, I don't know. No, it was like, he was always quoting so much Shastra, of course. But the way he was speaking, he spoke as someone who knew. Not someone who had heard, someone who had read, someone who knew. Everything he spoke, he had realized. And that gave so much weight. Like if I tell you, you're not the body, you say, yeah, sure. But Prabhupada said, you're not the body, it like hit you like a fist, like, yeah, I'm not the body.
Je anilo premadana Karuna prachur